Hi everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Lauren, and today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of September. So September was actually a pretty slow reading month for me. I read a grand total of 1,482 pages, which is a little bit less than I normally read. I just have been busy and kind of not really in the mood, and also sort of fighting a little bit of a reading slump. In order to combat the possibility of a reading slump, I felt like it was better to just sort of accept it for what it is and not push myself too hard. I read a grand total of 5 books, though one of them was a DNF. That being said, another was a 3-star, and then the 3 others were all 4 stars. So overall, a pretty good reading month. So I think today I'm just going to talk about these in the order I normally talk about books in, which is the book I like the least all the way up to the book I like the most, so we can end on a high note. So without further ado, let's just jump right in and talk about all of the books that I read in September. All right, so the book at the very bottom of the list, very unfortunately, was The Paradox Hotel by Rob Hart. This is pretty disappointing for me because I pulled it out of my Golden Star jar. It was in my Golden Star jar because I was really excited about it, and judging by the synopsis, I thought that I was absolutely going to love it. But alas, this is a story of, it follows a woman who is basically the head of security at the Paradox Hotel. Although it wasn't made fully clear what the deal was with it, it made it sound like the hotel, people could travel out of the hotel to other time periods, like through time travel technology. The security officer, whose name is January, has traveled through time quite a bit and is suffering some repercussions, some sort of mental problems, mental issues because of it. She has started hallucinating a dead body in one of the rooms of this hotel, and is trying to figure out what happened, why that's there, when it happened. Just all the details surrounding that. Strange things have started to occur in this hotel, and we're kind of watching the security officer, January, try to figure out what's going on. I feel like I'm actually having a really hard time describing this because the main issue that I had with this book was that I found it to be really scattered, very unfocused. The most interesting parts of the synopsis, this book, it didn't focus on those aspects of the concept. Also, the protagonist, January Cole, the security officer, was, for me, by far one of the most unlikable protagonists that I have ever read, which is saying a lot because I'm someone who actually really enjoys unlikable characters. This one though, this was like whole other level unlikable. I can really enjoy reading about an unlikable character if some reasoning or something, some backstory or something is given to sort of explain why they are the way they are. And to a certain degree, I feel like an explanation was kind of given about this character, but for me, it was just not a good enough explanation for why this character was the way they were. She was unbearable to me, and ultimately, I think, was like the final straw for me DNFing this book, which I DNF'd The Paradox Hotel at 50%. I feel like I gave it a fair shot, but it wasn't a good experience for me, and I didn't want to push through on a book that just really wasn't working for me. Those are just my feelings on this book. It may really work well for you, so just take that with a grain of salt. The next book up the list is Vessel by Lisa A. Nichols. This is a sci-fi novel, and it is about a woman who was on a space expedition. Apparently some sort of catastrophe happened with her crew, and she is the only surviving member of the crew, and kind of eventually over many years makes it back to Earth against all odds. But she is sort of experiencing some memory loss. Like, she can't remember what happened, like what this event that apparently killed out all the crew members. She can't really remember what happened. NASA is pressuring her to get more information about what happened, and she just can't remember most of it. She also was gone for so long that her husband moved on and is in a relationship with another woman. Her daughter, who was a small child when she left, is now a teenager. So this book has a lot, is very kind of psychological, I guess. Like, this woman is trying to sort of sort through everything that she left behind, what she has come back to, and trying to just sort of move on with her life after this experience in space. This overall was an enjoyable read for me. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It was pretty middle of the road. This, honestly, I probably would have given this a higher rating if it had been a little bit less focused on sort of the psychology of this type of situation and like these interpersonal relationships. If it had been a little bit more like sci-fi focused, like scientific and, you know, more about that sort of stuff. But really, it was just, we're very much inside of this woman's head and her experience coming back to Earth after all these years. And it, like I said, it was fun and interesting, but just not totally what I was expecting. It also kind of, this is sort of a pet peeve for me for sci-fi novels that have to do with like astronauts. This woman made some really poor decisions in this book, and I find that to be a little like unrealistic. Astronauts train for years and years to be able to do what they do, and I just kind of find it a little hard to believe that an astronaut who has had all of this training and all of this experience can like make such poor decisions about whether or not they should tell someone that they're experiencing strange symptoms that are, you know, inexplicable. That being said, I really liked the concept of this book. I thought the writing was nice. I would read another book by this author. Not my favorite, but it was fine. This was a fine read. Honestly, this would actually probably be a good crossover novel for someone who is interested in reading some sci-fi, but you don't want to read something that is too like technical or too, you know, over the top and heavy with scientific information and jargon. This would be a good crossover for someone who likes mystery novels or kind of literary mystery type novels. You may really enjoy this one. Next up, we have Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. This was actually this is pretty random of a read. I wasn't intending to read this book. I had purchased it somewhat recently, picked it up to kind of just peruse like the first couple pages and instantly got hooked to it, could not put it down. I really liked this book. It sucked me right in, so I just kept on going with it, and before I knew it, I had finished it. If you are unfamiliar with this story, this is a vampire story. It is about a vampire named Louis who is giving an interview to just some young man. He's giving an interview to this man and sort of just describing his life. I think he has been alive for a few hundred years, maybe 200 or 300 years anyway. He tells a story of how he becomes a vampire. The beginning of his story starts in maybe the 1700s. I clearly wasn't paying close enough attention, but Louis meets a man who come to find out is a vampire. His name is Lestat. And Lestat, Louis has recently lost his brother and is in just very deep grief in his life, and so Lestat is looking for a companion, basically a vampire companion. Lestat is alone, and so decides to turn Louis into a vampire, and it's just the story of their relationship, which is not the healthiest. Them living together and just, you know, doing vampire things. It's not exactly just like crazy high action and thrills and chills or anything like that, but it is very captivating. It's a very captivating story. This book I ended up giving 4 stars. I really liked it. I've only ever read 2 vampire novels. This is my second favorite. My favorite is A Delicate Dependency by Michael Talbot, but this was excellent. Anne Rice has a very beautiful writing style, although to be honest, about halfway through it started to get a little overly indulgent, I think, which caused the middle and the end of the book to drag a little bit. But still, it was very beautiful writing. Also, the characters were just incredibly well fleshed out and lovable. Like, you just couldn't help but really just feel attached to them. They were just very attaching characters. And the story itself was like I said, it was absolutely riveting. It's a fairly long series. I don't think I'll continue with it. I think that this was enough for me. But nonetheless, really enjoyed Interview with Vampire. The next book up the list is Futuristic Violence and Fancy Suits by David Wong. This is the first in a series. I'm not sure what the series is called, and I am filming on my phone, so I can't exactly look it up and see what it's called. But this, I absolutely loved reading this book, and let's just take a minute to appreciate this cover. Though I feel like I could give a pretty spoiler-free synopsis of this book. The synopsis on the back of the book honestly does not say much. I try to not say anything more than what is on the back of the book, and there's not a whole lot that is said on the back of the book as far as what this book is about. So I apologize if this isn't enough information for you, but I don't know. I don't want to ruin it for you if you don't want to know any more than that. This book is about a young woman who, her name is Zoe, and she winds up getting sucked into this city called Tabula Rasa that is essentially like an amped up version of Las Vegas. It is like Las Vegas, but way crazier, way more wild, and with pretty much no police force at all. And she is pulled there by circumstances beyond her control. And this is a very like high action novel. It's also kind of satirical. It's very humorous, and the writing. So if you don't like satire, this isn't the book for you. But I love satire. This is also kind of like almost cyberpunk dystopian, which I love. I love those things. And so this book worked really, really well for me. I really do want to say more about it, but I just don't want to ruin it for you. If you don't want to know more than what is on the back of the book, that's about it. That's about all that's on the back of the book. This book was both funny and fun to read. The plot was very exciting. The characters were really interesting. There was a good cross section of characters, and they were developed very well. And overall, this was just my kind of story. One thing though that I would say wasn't my favorite, this book, it had too many climactic scenes in it. You know, 2/3 of the way in and some major climax is happening. It almost spoils it for you because you know that whatever is happening, like, it's gonna go wrong or whatever. And that kind of happened over and over in this book, and I don't much care for books that do that. I would prefer to work up to like 1 or 2 really climactic scenes. And also the characters were a little too lucky for my taste. I prefer characters to sort of, you know, outmaneuver the bad guys through like cleverness and wit. But these characters, they were kind of lucky. Not my favorite thing, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed reading this. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I don't know that I will continue in this series. I think that just this one was enough for me. But that being said, I am really interested in reading more from this author. In fact, I have ordered another one of his books, John Dies at the End, and I'm really looking forward to getting that and reading that. Like, this is just my kind of writing, like satirical, dystopian, sci-fi, cyberpunk. Like, it works really well for me. So if any of that works well for you, if you like the sounds of that, I would absolutely recommend that you give this one a try. And the final book on the list, the book that I enjoyed the most of every book that I read in September, was The Masked City by Genevieve Cogman. This is the second book in the Invisible Library series. I'm not sure how long the series is going to be. I think right now there are maybe 8 books out. I don't know if the most recently released book is the final book or if there's going to be one more, but it's a pretty decently long series. The idea of the Invisible Library, it is about a woman, her name is Irene, and she is a librarian at the Invisible Library. And basically what the Invisible Library is, it's a library between realities. Irene travels to different realities collecting important rare books to keep in the Invisible Library so that they aren't lost to time. When this book opens up, Irene and her apprentice are on a mission to get some book and a specific reality, and her apprentice, his name is Kai, he gets kidnapped by the Fae. So this story is about Irene trying to find him, trying to recapture him from the Fae, and she has to travel to another reality, a very dangerous reality, in order to do that. So this book is very high action, high adventure. I absolutely love this book. Like, if you are into portal fantasies, this is the series for you. These are so much fun. They are so engaging. The characters are so likable, and they're very interesting. It's been fun getting to know them so far. Also, this novel in particular, I found it to be incredibly incredibly clever. So a couple of the scenes in this book were they were so imaginative and so immersing. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. It's not a perfect book, but we're still pretty early on in the series. Also, these books, they're just good, clean fun. They're kind of cotton candy. They're not particularly thematically rich. But that's okay. They aren't intended to be that. For what they are excellent. They are so fun to read, and I'll absolutely be continuing on in the 3rd book in the series as soon as I have a chance. So really love this one. Highly recommend the Invisible Library series if you have any interest in Portal fantasy series. So I think that is going to be it for me today. Those are all of the books that I read in September. I would be very curious to know if you have read any of them and what you've thought about them, or if any of them sound interesting to you and you might pick them up. I would love to talk to you about it in the comments down below. Also, did you read anything interesting in September? I would love to hear about it. I am always looking for my next great book recommendation. If you enjoyed this video, I hope that you will like it and possibly subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.